What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to your home for all things combat sports.
Yo.
So, Nick, the notorious Conor McGregor came out and laid out his roadmap for his next 3 fights. He's still holding fast to that December 16th date, the last pay-per-view of the year, and he said he's going to fight Michael Chandler then. Then he's got his sights set on Justin Gaethje because he wants that BMF belt, and that's a fun matchup that he has yet to contest for in the octagon. And then he said he's going to do the trilogy with Nate Diaz. Nate, we just saw him in the boxing ring with Jake Paul. Apparently there's an MMA fight about to happen between him and Jake as sort of the rematch there, but he believes that he'll make his way back to the UFC eventually, and that trilogy will happen. What do you think of his roadmap?
Well, I really like that he's actually coming out and letting us know kind of the direction that he wants to go. And for the longest time, Conor McGregor was inactive, and he was also looking for title shots. And a lot of people were like, even though he's not doing the heavy lifting and he's not really getting his hand raised, he probably is still a big enough star to where he could jump right back into a title fight or something like that. Now we all kind of understand, including Conor McGregor, that he's not coming back for a title fight. He probably needs to win at least one against a top 5 guy like a Justin Gaethje before he can get himself into a title fight. So I think it's best that he, changes directions and looks towards these big names at 155, these really exciting matchups that everybody wants to see. And at the end of the day, Conor McGregor is a fight fan just like all of us. And if you can take him out of the equation and just let him look at the situation from the outside and be like, look, Conor, look at your fight style and your fight skills versus Michael Chandler. Everybody wants to see that. You can get the fighter fan side of him very excited with these matchups, and I think this is the direction he should go. Obviously, if he can beat Michael Chandler and some crazy things happen at the top of 155, we could see him in there for a title fight, but I'm more interested in seeing him do these really big fights, these high-profile matches against the people that I deem to be the most fun opponents for him.
Yeah, stylistically, it seems like he knows where he matches up well, or at least where he thinks he matches up well.
Right.
And for the Conor McGregor train to keep rolling down the track at full speed, he does need to get some wins. Obviously, Conor's the biggest name in the sport. He's the biggest name we've ever had in this sport.
Right.
He made this sport mainstream with a lot of his fights. He crossed over into pop culture. People that aren't MMA fans know who Conor McGregor is. And no one has really, bridged that gap quite the way that McGregor has. But he also has not won a lot lately, and he needs to get some wins under his belt for people to continue to get excited and continue to pay $80 or $90 to watch him fight on a Saturday night. So I think that it's a smart game plan. I believe that Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, and Nate Diaz are winnable fights for him. And the way I look at it is he needs to win 2 out of 3 of those. Is that possible? Yes, I believe it is. I think he can beat Michael Chandler, and I do believe he can beat Nate again in the trilogy. Justin Gaethje is going to be the toughest test of all. We saw he looked stellar against Dustin Poirier, and he still seems like he's fighting on a high enough level to contend for and potentially even win a championship belt. Depending on what happens with Islam Makhachev and Charles Oliveira, I think Islam's going to be very hard to beat for anybody, especially Justin Gaethje. But I do like this roadmap for Conor. I think it's fun. I think it's exciting. And it gives us some, closure, so to speak, on the next 12 to 18 months of his career. We know we're going to get Conor 3 times. We know more than likely who the opponents are going to be. And most importantly, we can see these fights as exciting fights that Conor could actually get in there and get his hand raised in.
Yeah, and I think the entire fight world has their eyes on Conor McGregor and when his return is going to happen, even though we don't have an official date, and he's going with December 16th, and USADA is, a 6-month requirement before you can get in there, and he hasn't said that he's been getting tested by USADA, but obviously he doesn't have to do the same things that everybody else has to. So we could see him in there. I'm thinking he's probably going to come in next year, sometime in the first quarter, and we'll see him get his first fight back then. But it feels like the calm before the storm, right? He's starting to steal some headlines. Now he's back in the circle and back in the Twitter sphere of the fight world. And I do feel like a lot of people are just anticipating his return. And if he's able to get in there with Michael Chandler first, which is what Dana White said he wants to see and what Dana White said he's going to make happen, I think that is a very winnable fight for Conor. And if he can go out there and compete with Michael Chandler and get his hand raised, and of course if he can go out there and compete with Justin Gaethje, even if he loses that fight, that tells us that while he hasn't been very active and he might not be the Conor McGregor that we used to see, on that meteoric rise, he definitely still belongs at the top of the division, because if you're able to contest with Justin Gaethje, you absolutely belong at the top of 155. And with him coming back and doing The Ultimate Fighter, kind of giving us those highlight reel moments outside of the octagon, it gets us excited for what Conor can bring back to the octagon octagon. But regardless of his time off, Conor McGregor has changed the sport. And ever since he started having these high-profile fights and fighting for world titles and winning and all that stuff, he has really changed not just the fighters and not just the sport, but the people that watch the sport. Now every UFC event is a star-studded event. There's people that everybody recognizes from all walks of life sitting there in the front row, and I think Conor has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, no doubt. And the thing about each of these opponents that he laid out, Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje, Nate Diaz, they both bring the other element to the fight that Conor's looking for, which is somebody that will play ball at the press conference, somebody that's willing to go back and forth on Twitter with the trash talk. And
Absolutely.
Each of those guys are different, right? Nate's totally different from Michael Chandler, who is totally different from Justin Gaethje. But the common denominator is each one of those guys knows how to market, knows how to promote, and plays ball on their own regardless of Conor. So when you throw McGregor into the situation with those guys, it's going to make for 3 huge fights.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know you'll get fireworks inside of the octagon, but you'll also get a really good lead up to that.
No doubt.